we create the problems. Because remember, it's basically we're tying it to the real world of misperception. One thing that we need to practice more is self-control. Be dead serious. We need to practice self-control a lot more often but I also think it has to do with capacity and calling. Capacity wise, how much can you actually take on? And how much can you handle without dropping the ball on anything? That's no good for anybody. The goal is to move forward. The goal is to have a healthy future starting right now. You can't go back and alter the past. Ask questions and only respond to what's in front. What are you dealing with at this moment? Try not to bring any past situations into this moment. Hey everybody, welcome back to Insider Threat. I'm your host Graveyyy, and as you can see today, I am solo dolo. If y'all from the country, y'all know what solo dolo is. I don't know if anybody else say it, but I know from the South, where I'm from, down near the Savannah area, we definitely say solo dolo. We mean is we're by ourselves, basically. But nevertheless, we're going to get into an amazing topic today. Today's episode is titled False Positives. Y'all, we are on episode 6 of volume 2. Can we get a round of applause for that? First of all, let's do that. Let's get a round of applause for that, because we're making our way. We're pressing our way. We're making our way. We got to do what we got to do, right? So I know I told y'all that I'm trying to do, most of the episodes this season or this volume, I'm trying to do with a guest. So I'm going to give y'all a little sprinkle of solo shows throughout the season, but there's not going to be any short of an amazing conversation. So like I said, today's episode is titled False Positives. And so to give you a little bit of a background, let's start with that, right? So before we get started, have you ever spent hours worrying about something only to discover it never happened? Because I know I have. I try not to worry because I've been counseled and I'm trying to get better, but I'm if I'm being honest, I do worry about things. Just a matter of, what's the outcome, or how was it perceived, or did I say something that was perceived a certain way, right? I'm getting way better because it was a lot worse from the jump. Before I got counseled on not to and started praying about it a lot more. Now I'm doing a lot better. And I'll share some of those tips and tricks that I use a little bit later, but I am doing a lot better. So just a little bit of transparency for my people. But I want to know about you guys. Have you ever spent hours worrying about something only to discover it never happened? For example, a text goes unanswered. Your boss says, "Oh, we need to talk." And then you immediately say in your head, "Oh, shoot. I'm about to get fired. It's over with for me." Our mind just immediately goes to the end. We don't go and think about, not necessarily, we don't go in without giving it a second thought, right? So your boss calls you and said, "Hey, we need to talk." Somebody can give you a different look than usual. Now it's okay, she acting funny. What I did to her, what you mean? What's up? What's up? Because we could take it there. You know what I mean? We immediately jump to the end without trying to get some sort of understanding, some sort of communication going to see what's really going on, because maybe that person was giving me a sideways look because they having a bad day, or they could have been looking past me and I just might have been in their line of sight. Now I feel like you giving me that side eye, right? You giving me that little stank look, right? Maybe somebody walked by and was a little, you get what I'm saying? Now my face tooted up, but you looking at me thinking I'm looking at you with this tooted up face. But that's what we're getting into, right? So in cybersecurity, a false positive is when a security system identifies something as a threat that isn't actually dangerous. So with all the examples that I just gave, obviously this too happens in life. So we're going to get into this conversation. I'm excited about it. Before we jump into the conversations, just to kind of, get things started, because y'all know how we do over here. We do like to say, and get started with our little introduction, our icebreaker. So even though we don't have a guest, you guys know we're ex-military, right? We're veterans. So we stick to a schedule. So say Graveyyy. All right. So a joke, a quote, or my biggest fear. So I wrote down a quote and it said, fear doesn't always need evidence to get our attention. And the rest of it says, sometimes all it needs is a possibility. Let's talk about the alarms we create before we know the truth. Pretty deep. Like, let's talk about the alarms we create before we know the truth. And the part about that quote that really stands out to me is the fact that we create the problems. Because remember, it's basically, we're tying it to the real world of misperception. And I know a lot of us struggle with that. So, and like I said, I'm ready to get into this topic, into this conversation. Y'all, I'm getting a lot more comfortable. So we're going to have us a good little chat. You hear me? We're going to have us a good little chat. So let's get started with our first segment. So moving on to the internet segment, we have a couple of questions, but I do want to give y'all like a story or like kind of one of my experiences with misperception. And that's why I wanted to talk about it so much, because I honestly don't like it, but I also don't understand it. Right. Because I've done it a couple times. And even when I do it, I'm just like, why would I even think that? Like, why would I think the worst? Right. Like, why couldn't I just kind of like wait? So, let me see. I was working with this guy, right? And he said I misperceived it, or I didn't understand, because misperception can also go kind of hand in hand with comprehension. Like, did I comprehend what you said? Do I have the facts? Do I have what I need to use any context clues that I need to get a understanding and understand what you're trying to relay the way you're trying to relay it, right? So he said I didn't understand, but I really feel like, in my opinion, this wasn't my fault. But we're going to take accountability, because maybe I didn't perceive it how he meant it to be perceived. Can we say that? But anyways, so I was working with this guy. Like I told you guys before, I also am a real estate investor. So if somebody's looking for a home, comments, I'll give you the business page. You can find all of the links and the homes that's available. Shameless plug, whatever. But anyway, so I was working with this guy, and he was like giving me a suggestion as far as when to rent the properties. Now, mind you, I'm in a full-on renovation, and the renovation was almost getting like finalized, and we were talking about getting the units rented. And so he at the time was like, and I think one of the last things we needed to get done was to get the AC replaced. And so he said, well, let's go ahead and advertise it. Mind you, this is what he said. He said, let's go ahead and advertise it. I said, but how? I said, if we advertise it without AC, I fear we're going to have to advertise it not for the amount that we wanted to rent the unit. I said, so we can't put somebody in the home at a particular price, right? Only to add the HVAC later and then try to raise the price. I said, that's not going to work. We have to just wait. Like, we can wait till we get it done. We know we'll get it done in like a few weeks. Just wait to get the AC installed. And so a few months later, we got into this big argument, and he was like, he brought that up because at the time he didn't bring it up. So from my understanding, I perceived what you were saying correctly, because he even told me, oh yeah, that makes sense. So whenever he brought it up, we had a little powwow, whatever like that, debate. And he was like, even when I was saying let's rent the units, you didn't understand what I said. I said let's rent the units with advertising with AC. And then that way, once the tenant does the deposit or something like that, we can get the AC and the HVAC will be in the unit before the tenant gets there. And I'm like, so it would have been false advertising. A little white lie. I gotta tell y'all something about me. I don't like liars. I don't understand lying. I don't get why you have to do it. If somebody asks me something that I did, I'm probably going to tell you the truth. Like, there's a difference between, okay, why are you really asking me this? Do you really need to know this? I'm not going to tell you that. So I'm neither confirming nor denying, but I'm not telling you a flat out lie. But if it's something that I don't mind sharing, that I'm not ashamed about, which isn't much, whatever, what's up? And so for me, when he was like advertised without the unit as having the unit, I'm like, but the unit's not there. I don't know. Maybe I'm in like a strict construct where they say don't color out of lines. I'm pretty sure I don't do that, but maybe I'm in some strict construct that everybody doesn't abide by. And that's okay with me. It kind of puts me very firm and very, in some people's mind, closed-minded, which I don't believe I am. But it does put me kind of firm and some maybe perceived as closed-minded. But I just feel like I'm just standing 10 toes. So that's my little story time. If you find the conclusion, let me know. Because in my mind, I might still be misperceiving it, if we've been honest. But y'all tell me if I'm wrong, because how I took it at the beginning is like, first of all, you wanted to lie. I'm not going to lie. So we need another alternative. My alternative was just to wait. Like, why can't we wait for a couple weeks? It was going to take more than that to rent the unit anyway. It's not like it was going to rent within a day. Anyways, let's get into these questions into the internet segment. That was my little story time, little brief story time for the internet segment. But anyways, now the question is, tell me about a time when you were convinced something was wrong and later realized it wasn't. Convinced that something was wrong. I don't know. I don't know if I was convinced that something was wrong. So I think my issue is kind of like on the back end of that. No, I guess it's the same process. How about the time you were convinced something was wrong? Let me think. That I was convinced something was wrong. I don't know. I might have to circle back to this question because right now I'm drawing a blank. I don't know. Convinced something was wrong. Because I was right. See this way. I ain't gonna lie to you. I feel like it's two sides, because there's discernment and then there's misperception. When I be discerning things, God be showing me something. So that's why I was like, I was right. So that wasn't the right thing to think about. Yeah. I don't think I've ever like spazzed out over something that I didn't think through. And I think I kind of conflict with this topic a little bit because I am, like I said, I do worry sometimes. And so a part of my worryation is overanalyzing. And I have I'm analytical. I'm sorry, but I have a very analytical brain. I try to be very logical about situations instead of emotional. And honestly, that keeps me from, misperceiving a lot of things. Right. So I try to understand and I try to listen as much as I can. I do have a problem with like cutting people off so that I don't like miss but I do it because I don't want to miss like the point that I had whenever they're talking. But I do have a problem with like cutting people off, but I do listen and I try to hear everything that they're saying first, and then kind of draw my conclusions from what the context, and then give a response. So I think with me overanalyzing, it kind of clashes with my understanding, because I do believe that I comprehend pretty well, but there are some things that just right over my head. Not gonna lie to you, that y'all go right over my head. And those times is definitely, I'm probably gonna give like a short answer. I'm still not gonna perceive to know like what you said, because if it went over my head, I'm gonna just be like, oh, okay, okay, and then I might circle back and be like, so what you meant by this? I just feel that people should ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, ask more and more questions every day. So we're gonna circle back to that question, because like I said, right now I'm drawing a blank. So it said, have you ever thought someone was upset with you only to find out they had something completely different going on? When I thought something was going on, something was definitely going on. Something was definitely going on. And I tell you, because it was a couple times. And I remember somebody I used to like be cool with and everything like that for years. And it was kind of all abrupt, honestly. It was very abrupt, because we had been talking for like months prior. Not a love interest, guys. It was a friend. But we had been talking for like months prior. And then out of nowhere, it was just kind of like, you know, I seen that they was home. They was gone for a while. I was helping them out and everything like that. I seen that they was gone. I reached out and I'm like, hey, I stopped by, see you, whatever. No response. So I'm like, okay, well. And I think that's what it is. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You do what you want with that, because once my trust is gone, friend, I don't need to know where you been. You hear me? So once my trust is gone, it's like, okay, boop, boop, bum nose. So, and I think I talked about this in like previous episodes. It's kind of like drop the hammer. It's through. Drop the blade. It's done. So, and it's no hard feelings or anything like that. I'm just cool on you. Like once I understand like how to deal with you, my feelings aren't hurt. It's just my expectation of you has been adjusted, and I act according to that expectation. My feelings aren't hurt. I'll still talk to you. I hope you're doing well. I love you. And want you to be the very best version of yourself. But like I said, we were talking, like chatting it up for like months prior, helping out where I could. And then like I seen that they were home and reached out. I was like, hey, I could come see you. Da, 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 da. I ain't seen you in a while. And just no response. So I'm like, all right, cool. Maybe benefit of the doubt. I was like, maybe they didn't get the response. So like a couple hours later, I sent her a follow-up. I was like, hey, I don't know if you got the message, but hey, if y'all home, da da da, I can stop by. Very respectful. And so nothing came of it. And so for me, once, okay, cool. Twice, okay, cool. Third time, something going on. And I just left it at that. I didn't feel the need to run it down, because I had already reached out. So I didn't feel the need to run it down. And if I'm being honest, I never really figured out what was wrong. I think I watched a video, and it was a lady, she was giving advice, and she said, if the friendship is not enough to have a conversation and get understanding before just like everything cutting off, then it was never really a friendship. So from that understanding, I just pretty much moved on. Like I said, no hard feelings. I wish you well, but I say all that to say that most of the time, because the question was like, have you ever thought somebody was upset with you? And it really wasn't. Like I said, most of the time I'm going to use context clues. I really feel like it's better to be logical, and I try to be as logical as I can. Hence the analyzation, but I try to be as logical as I can, because I know if I lead with emotions, I can perceive something that's not what's really going on. And so I don't necessarily like to do that. I don't like to lead with emotion, because emotions can get you in trouble. And the fact that emotions are fleeting, but people react to them instantly, like one emotional reaction can change your life forever. Like, if we're being completely honest, I know some things is like you can't control, but one thing that we need to like practice more is self-control. Like, be dead serious. We need to practice self-control a lot more often, because if we can't control ourselves, and I always tell my nephews and my niece and nephews, you can't control anybody but yourself. Like, absolutely cannot control anyone but yourself. Whenever we fully understand that concept and can put it into application, I think the world would be a much safer place, because you get people that react emotionally, and then you turn around and like, oh, well, they made me do it. If they wouldn't have made me do it, I wouldn't have felt like I had to. And then the conversation always starts with that I wouldn't have felt like I had to do this, or I felt like, or how I feel, or this, that, and the third. Like, feelings are fleeting. They shouldn't drive your actions. They shouldn't drive your actions. Logic, thinking, cognitive use should drive your actions, because when you think through things, you typically don't just stop at, oh, I'm going to unalive this person. When you think it through things, your mind is going to automatically go, if I unalive this person, what's going to happen after that? Let's think about that. If I unalive this person, what's going to happen after that? Oh, okay. Okay, if I do that, who's going to be affected? Oh, da, 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 da. And I always tell people, like, life is just a series of decisions. So if you can make a decision, one decision, you're going to, we not even make a decision, but life is a series of decisions. So we wake up making decisions all day, and we have to consider in our decisions that, is this solely based off my emotions, or is this me actually thinking through the process of what's going on right now? Am I taking in all of the information, all of the context from around me, everything I'm going through, everything I've seen, everything they're saying, how I'm feeling right now? Am I taking all of that into context and then making a decision based off of that? Or am I just using just how I'm feeling about it? Dang everybody else, I don't care what's around me, who's around me. Am I just focused on how I'm feeling at the moment? And do I not need to react off of that? And I think that's how we need to address that. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't think there has ever been a time that I didn't think, I don't think there's ever been a time that I thought something was wrong and it wasn't. It was definitely something wrong. Now, there was a time whenever I was like in the middle of an argument, and I was like, oh, I was so heated. I was like frustrated, because y'all, we was arguing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I think I might have said something. I was talking so fast, I don't even remember saying that. Man, that person I was arguing with might have brought it back up. I said, and who said that? And who said that? I don't know who you've been talking to, but who said that? I went back and read the messages, y'all. It was me. It was me. It was me. I said that. But we eased right on by that, and we kept arguing, okay? I was talking to another friend while I was like arguing with one. I'm like, and then we read through the messages. She bust out laughing. Wrong. She dead wrong for laughing at me, for real. This question says, have you ever misread a text message, facial expressions, or silence? I will let y'all in on a little secret, which y'all might do the same thing. Don't leave me hanging. So if you do the same thing, comment below. Tell me right now. Do you guys read text messages and perceive? I won't say perceive, but assume. There we go, because they know, you know what you say about assuming. Do you guys read text messages and assume the tone? Do you read him like, oh, that was a little attitude, that's a little sarcasm, do y'all do that? I do too. First of all, I do too. Now, I think this is where we can get the the message misconstrued, right? Because I can say something one way. I can say the same thing in multiple ways and mean different things. You know what I mean? And I think it's a matter of fact, because it's the challenge going around right now where they have you say the same thing and then it's like the acting challenge or whatever like that. But they have you say the same thing and they're like, okay, be anxious or be surprised or be mad or be happy or be like sexy, flirty or whatever like that. But they're saying the same words. That is a prime example. I can read the same thing, and if somebody can say the same thing, and if it's in different tones or different, like, the vibe that you're getting from it, it can mean different things. Like, it can. I'm gonna try to do it, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna do it. What am I gonna say? Hold on. I'm about to try to do the little trick. Okay. And it said, do it like, give me something. Hold on. I think I seen like something gonna come to me because I'll go do it. Okay, hold on. Wow, you do a podcast? So that's good. That's gonna be the statement, right? So it's gonna be like, surprise. Wow, you do a podcast? Oh my gosh. Right? That's surprise. That's, I guess. Oh no, that's not surprise. That'll be more happy. Let's do it like that. Okay, we're gonna start over. Take 2. Wow, you do a podcast is what we're saying. So we're going to do it like surprise. Wow, you do a podcast? That was pretty good. Okay, so now happy. Wow, you do a podcast. Like, that's great. Okay. And then mad, sarcastic. Wow, you do a podcast. I like that one. But yeah, anyways, you get the gist, right? I can say the same thing in different tones and mean something totally different. And you can perceive it how the tone that it was meant to be in. But back to the text messages, what I'm saying is this can aid in us misperceiving what a text message means, right? Because we'll assume what tone or what they're trying to say. Now, the question is, have I ever misperceived a text message? And I would say yes. Because I can't just be on here and be like, no, it ain't never happened to me. None of this stuff never happened to me. Like, things happen, guys. Things happen. They do. But like I said, I'm just not a very emotional person. So I might have perceived it. But the question is, did I say something about it? No. Because I'm like, and I tell everybody, I'm like, I peep stuff and don't say nothing. So I don't think the question is, have I ever experienced it? Because I definitely experienced it. I don't think I've ever brought it up to say yay or nay that I actually like said something about it, and then we came to a resolution where it was like, baby, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. But I can say that I understand how it can be misinterpreted. What's the biggest misunderstanding you've ever created in your own mind? I don't think it was a misunderstanding. I think it's a misconception. And that misconception was that, the misconception was that what I desired was too big and that I needed to kind of think smaller and work my way up. And it just it was a part of like me dreaming and doing all the things that I wanted to do in life. Right. And so, like I tell everybody, God did not give me the power to think small. So everything I do kind of seems to be over the top. And I know a lot of people don't understand it. And at one point it kind of got me down. So it made me kind of rethink how much I was doing, and everything out, like the training and everything like that was just always like, hey, one thing at a time, niche it out. And I understand that. I get what they're saying. But I also think it has to do with capacity and calling. And what I mean by capacity and calling is how much, in capacity wise, how much can you actually take on? and how much can you handle without dropping the ball on anything. And calling is if God called you to it, he's going to bring you through it. And so it doesn't matter how, and he's oftentimes going to call you at the time that you're appointed to do these things. So if God called you to like more than one thing, he's giving you the sustenance, energy, and endurance to push through. So between that and my favorite quote from military, the only way out is through, I had to readjust that thinking and like, no, you can do this. So like I said, I don't think it was a misunderstanding, but I do believe that it was a misconception. Yeah. But you guys don't forget to answer these questions in the comments, because although I don't really have like a story to kind of go off of, I won't say go off of, but just because I don't have a story that I can presently present to you guys doesn't mean that you guys don't share in these experiences and that your story can encourage somebody else. And that's what this show is really about, just encouraging somebody else and not being afraid to tell your story and speak up, right? Or just speak out. So going into the next segment, buffering, it says, this is good. Looking back, were you reacting to the situation or something from your past? If I had to think of a situation where I reacted because of past traumas, I would have to go back to my trauma, which is, abuse and everything like that. I would say it how this showed up. And I don't think I've ever been like reactive, but I like in a state where it's like it's an outward display. So I'm more so like I internalize. So it's like whenever I do react, it's a kind of internal battle that I deal with. So I might retreat to my room or like stay away or isolate myself and everything like that. Now, sometimes isolation is good and I do it often. Like whenever I'm overstimulated and I'm like, okay, I'm extroverted out, it's time to introvert. I need to go in. But I also know that there is a time where it's like, okay, I might have took that the wrong way. I don't really feel like talking about that right now. So I'm going to retreat. That's the part that I'm working on, because I don't feel like anybody should have to make themselves smaller. No matter what you're going through, you should be able to speak up for yourself, and do it in a way that you're standing on all 10s about yourself. And not necessarily caring how anybody else take it, because you have to teach people how to treat you. And that's a part of that. So, looking back at a time where I felt like I was reacting and I might've did my like cowering back or took a step back or whatever like that, was probably maybe when I was breaking up with like my ex, and it's way back when. So the details are a little spotty. The details are definitely a little spotty, but it was probably like breaking up with my ex when I was in like Fort Stewart. Yes. So maybe like 2015. And y'all, I haven't dated in a while. You hear me? But like this was like maybe 2015. And I was definitely reacting off of emotion instead of like logic. And I'm very big on, because that's a big one. A lot of us, whenever we're like in relationships, I can talk about that. So whenever we're in relationships, I fear that we can convince ourselves of something, even because that's like a really huge time where we're kind of clouded by emotions. And I fear that we can convince ourselves of something that isn't really true, for the sake of love or for the sake of somebody being by our side. So we ended up taking a lot of stuff that we're not supposed to take and don't necessarily have to deal with. If we've been completely honest, we don't have to take that. So it was like me breaking up with my boyfriend at the time back in like 2014, 2015. And I was reacting rather emotionally because at the time I found out that we were on and off, so it really wasn't a commitment. But from little old me, y'all, poor old me, I just knew I was in love. It was not love. Goodness gracious, I don't care what nobody say. It was not love. It wasn't. I don't care. But I just knew I was in love. And I think that was probably like my first serious relationship. And so I think I was 18, 19. So I found out that he had a baby. He had got somebody pregnant. And so I tried to think it through, y'all. I tried to use my logic. And this is why I prefer logic now, because I was dumb. That was stupid. There's no dumb answers, God dog it. Yes, that was a dumb answer. But I found out he had a baby. He got somebody pregnant. And so he told me, and I was like, oh, okay. Didn't react as far as like anger, like upset or nothing like that. I don't think I've ever thought forward to like the kids, the picket fence, the house. I don't think I thought that at all. And so whenever he told me, I'm like, I'm a processor. So I immediately accepted the data. And I'm like, okay. And I was trying to think it through. I'm like, if you're, and the thought crossed my mind, and I'm like, if you sleep with other people, you don't want me for real. Like, you don't want me. You don't want me. And we have to be honest about that. Like, some people like, okay, I'm gonna beat her to the punch. He want me. He as long as he know where home at. As long as he with me. If he's choosing somebody else, y'all, he don't want you, and that's okay to say. It's not shameful. It's nothing on your part. He don't want you. And so the thought crossed my mind, and I'm like, he doesn't want me. And this is where I learned that from, by the way. But the thought crossed my mind. I'm like, okay, if you sleeping with other girls, you basically don't want me. And I've always told people, like, I'm not interested in keeping somebody that don't want to be kept. And so the emotions was just taking over. So I think I sent this man a text message, y'all. And I think I sent this man a text message. I said, oh no. Y'all, I sent this man a text message. I said, at this point, I don't think it matters what you would do. I think I'll still convince myself to love you. Oh no. It was like, and I think I said that. So I was like, I don't think it matters what you do. I think I'll still convince myself to love you. And so I thought about that thing after I sent the text message, and I was like, Kobe, baby, no. No, you got to respect yourself more than that. You got to do better. And I think it was like a week later that I was just like, yeah. But that was me reacting off emotions. And I don't think it was the situation. I do believe that it was just because, like I said, I didn't react when he told me. And I don't think it was the situation. I just truly was convinced. It was a misperception. It's something that I had made up in my head. I was convinced that I was in love with this man. But it was a misconception. Like, I think I loved him, but no, I wasn't in love with him. And how I feel about like loving somebody. If I love on you, I want what's best for you. I want to see you succeed. Like, if you're hurting, I'm trying to help you figure it out. And he was just kind of like a little, I don't want to call him a project, but he was just a little baby. And like, you got to help him out. You got to help people out. And I'm such a helper. So it's like, I definitely had a misconception of the love aspect of what that relationship was. And sometimes, y'all, people do just need help. They don't need your companionship. Well, companionship is friendship too, but it's, don't let your emotional weaknesses and everything like that kind of overshadow what the other person needs. You still have to talk to them, get an understanding of what they actually need, what they actually want from you, because we can jump into these things where I think we can try to pull a relationship out of something that God only wanted us to have, a friendship, because what we had is what we needed to pour into that particular person so that they can get to their next level. Right. But then we're so human, and God made us to fellowship. So it's like we're so human and everybody's trying to find their person. And I understand that. I get that everybody's trying to find their person, but it's still a matter of, what do you need from me? Why are we here? Can we actually date? Can we court? Can we talk? Can we hang out? Can we be friends first? And get to know each other so that we have a better understanding of what we're both doing in each other's lives. Because I don't believe there's a coincidence into why you cross paths with someone. You just have to be willing to discover that, so that you're not binding yourself to something that you weren't supposed to be bound to. Like I said, sometimes you're just meant to help this person on to their next phase in life and help them into their next season. But like I said, you get so caught up in what I'm feeling and what I need, we don't necessarily consider the other person. So, how much anxiety comes from anticipating what might happen? This kind of goes hand in hand because people struggle with anxiety. I get it. In my opinion, I just believe that anxiety is the fear of the unknown. Like that's just how I feel about it. That's my definition for it, and that's how I look at it. I don't necessarily fear anxiety. I think I've felt it before. I guess like just like the build up, or like the pressure build up in the chest and just kind of like anxious. So I guess like I felt it before, but I don't believe that it's a continual state. I believe it's just a feeling, like sadness. Just like with sadness goes away. Just like with anger goes away. Just like with, I don't believe it's continually. So I don't believe I don't hear people walking around that, oh, I have sadness. How much people go around and say I have anxiety, or I have anger. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it's a state, and then you get over it. And it's just the fear of the unknown, and that's why we got to continue to pray, because we don't know, but God knows. So if we pray for understanding, or just have faith that He's going to have a better outcome than what we could have ever thought to have, or could ever have conjured up or made, I think we'll take comfort in knowing Him, although we don't know the end or know what's going to happen. So, yeah. Have past experiences trained you to expect rejection, disappointment, or failure? I do believe that past experiences are very important. I don't think it trained me to expect rejection, failure, or disappointment. Like I said, whenever I experience something or I encounter somebody's true self, I still don't get mad. I don't deem them a failure. I don't deem the relationship a failure. I still think back on, what did I learn from the situation? The only thing that happens is my expectation of that particular person adjusts. My expectation of what I can do as far as it comes to this venture or that venture or this job or that task. If I can't do it, it's like, okay, I need to learn something else. And somebody told me before, there's no such thing as failures, only lessons. So I don't believe that it caused me to expect failures or disappointment, but I definitely believe that it caused me to expect a lesson. So I always am ready to learn something, and I'm always ready to apply what I've learned in my next attempt, because the power ain't in getting weary. Yeah, the power is in not giving up. That's where the power is. So yeah, that's kind of how. Yeah. And then this says, what is the cost of believing every alarm your mind sends off? Well, what is the cost of believing every alarm your mind sends you? Chaos. I'm sorry. Chaos. Your life is going to be totally chaotic. Every time somebody talk about your child and you want to pop off. Every time somebody talks about your hair, about anything like that. Anytime somebody touches something that's painful, they can be speaking on it, you still going to misperceive it. We have to get to the point where we can actually like truly heal, not going through the fad, how we all how they had this big thing way back when, a few years ago, and everybody was #healing, but nobody actually ever healed, because nobody actually wanted to have the hard conversations. Nobody actually wanted to do the work. They just wanted to kind of jump on the bandwagon. So that's why you have a lot of people that are still sad and hurt when somebody says something about things that they haven't healed from. Maybe somebody makes a joke about sexual trauma, or which is not something to joke about, but I'm saying like maybe somebody with dark humor makes a joke around you about sexual trauma, and you have sexual trauma that you haven't really dealt with. You're going to spaz out because you're not going to have time to process logically, because your emotions is going to it's going to build so fast. And especially if you have somebody that's kind of like hot-headed or just very reactive, you're not going to have any time to think. Imagine the outcome of just reacting to your emotions. There's jail, there's death, there's, you get what I'm saying? Even when it comes down to having the, desire is one of the most strongest forces. Like, if you're that hard out for it, you would just do anything, or just might cause you to fall back in old patterns. Go back to somebody that you know is not good for you, but you just, I just need to itch scratch. Like, living in a state where our emotions are running us, where we believe every alarm that is set off in our head, it's just going to have a life of complete chaos. And that's no good for anybody. The goal is to move forward. The goal is to have a healthy future starting right now. You can't go back and alter the past, change the past. The only thing you can do is forgive. Vow not to do it again. Learn something from it. Vow not to do it again, and move forward so that your future is brighter. The light is forward. It's always forward. So this says, sometimes we're not responding to today's realities. We're responding to yesterday's experiences. When old wounds become our default filter, even safe situations feel dangerous. So make sure you're switching those filters. View things with a different outcome. Be more positive. Think more and more about what you're doing or what you're about to do next. You hear me? All right. So going into our next segment, it's called Tap Intranet. This segment has a few questions. Probably not going to do all of them, but this says, what's an alarm that doesn't control you anymore? And I'll probably have to say just being left out, in which I think I've always been kind of like a social butterfly. But I feel like that could have been possibly like rooted more in just having attention and stuff like that. So I've always kind of just hung out with myself and never really considered, hey, I'm being left out. So when I actually am being left out, I just kind of, instead of reacting emotionally, I just kind of accepted it. As far as I used to always say, I don't have a best friend, because I just feel like your best friend is, if somebody asks you, okay, who your best friend? The first name that came in your mind is your best friend. That's your best friend. So I always tell people, like, I don't have best friends. Like, all my friends have best friends. So it's like, I just have like a bunch of associates and acquaintances, which is fine. It's still people that I'm close with, but I was just okay with that for a very long time. And I had to really dig down and figure out, like, why am I okay with that? Because alarms are like, alarms and triggers aren't always like, wow, like, like they don't always go out off, because there are such things as silent alarms, right? So for, like I say, I internalize, so all of mine immediately go to default, which is think things through. So I always was like, well, all of my friends have friends, so they're technically just my acquaintances, and I was okay with that. And so every time I kind of have a recollection, I'm just like, why do I do that? And a part of that was just me in my childhood. Like, that's kind of how I grew up, as far as like with my dad and how I was raised. So it was like, okay, that was kind of like my first introduction to being put on like the back burner. And so once I realized that, I was like, oh, that's where I get that from, right? So I'm a firm believer, if you can identify the spirit, you can call it out. So I prayed about it one night. I was boo-hooing, and I was like, okay, I get it. I understand now. I understand. It's not okay to be it's okay to speak up for myself in a way where I'm still comfortable being like, I'm cool by myself, but I'm just letting you know that you did this. Did you realize this? Because some people don't realize what they do. Some people didn't even know that they did this. And if I've accepted it for so long, it could be like rooted in the people around me that it's kind of muscle memory and they don't even realize that they're doing it. So it's still important for me to bring it up. So yeah, it's still important for me to be like, hey, this happened. I identified it. I don't like it. And your people is going to be okay with making adjustments. Your people going to be okay with supporting you and giving you the things that you need, because you expect that from your people, right? Whether those are your friends or your family, they're going to support you. So don't be afraid to switch it a little bit. And just get what you need. Make sure you get what you need. So how do you separate facts from fear today? And I would say I separate facts from fear by making sure I have just that, the facts. Only responding to what I'm encountering at the time, not what I'm feeling. Sometimes I like remove the emotion and only respond to what is being said. If you need clarity, ask questions. That's another way to do it. If you need clarity, ask questions. If you felt like you perceived something, just like, hey, before I get the wrong idea, what did you mean by this? Because how I took it, I want to make sure that I'm not tripping. Ask questions and only respond to what's in front. Like, what are you dealing with at this moment? Try not to bring any past situations into this moment. And it was something someone said when I was at Podcast Summit last year, and he said, I made a vow when I was younger to not cut those who bleed on me, which I'm pretty sure is a quote for somebody else, but it's true, because you got to understand that I can't project what I've been bottling up because I'm too afraid to deal with. I can't project that onto someone that didn't cause the pain. And so as long as we can remember not to bleed on those who didn't cut us, I think we can save ourselves a lot of embarrassment, hurt, and just confusion, really. Because yeah, I know those are a lot of the emotions that we'll feel kind of right off bat whenever we're kind of react emotionally to a situation, and then it was a little bit taken out of context. All right, so yeah, what practices help you pause before reacting? And it's just what I just said, making sure you're asking questions and only reacting to what's in front of you. Well, not reacting, but only responding to what is being said at this moment in time without injecting any traumas or fears from previous situations or previous hurt. And I'll give you an example. Because whereas when I broke up, and it's referencing the same person, because Miss tried to be, listen, you unbothered. If unbothered was a person, basically. Now, yeah. Now, so as a caveat to the story about me breaking up with my ex, right? As a caveat, I told you he had a baby on me, right? Cool. A week later, we completely broke up. I'm not talking to this man, chilling with him. And when I'm done, I'm done. Like, I can be in the same room with you. I'm cool. My ex, I could be in the same room with any of my exes and be like, yeah, what's up? And like, just no feelings. And so, and to assure you, I was in a room with my ex at a party like a few months later after we completely broke up. I'm fine. I'm good. But anyways, fast forward. So he had a baby on me. I had just got back from Korea. This was, mind you, we broke up like 2014, 2015. I hadn't talked to him since. I got back from Korea like 28, went to Korea 2018, came back from Korea 2019, March. And I was working at Battalion. This is when I still was in the military too. So I was working at Battalion, and it was like 4 months in, because I was getting ready to go. I was actually on the way to my second phase physical. And if you don't know what a second phase physical is in the military, once you do your second phase physical, you're basically on your way out the door. You don't do any more PT because they don't want you to get hurt on the job. Okay. So I was actually on my way to my phase 2 physical. I was working at Battalion, and they had me working as the DTS clerk, which is the Defense Travel System clerk. And so what the defense travel system clerk is, whenever the soldiers goes on orders or go like PTDY, like not PTDY, TDY, which is like temporary duty, and they go and they come back, I do all the paperwork, or if they do the paperwork, but if they're having issues, I help them with the paperwork that they submitted, like their vouchers and everything like that, so that they can get paid for their travel. Because when you go TDY, you have like per diem, and then you have like just other things associated with pay. You're tracking your expenses, your receipts and everything like that. So I was actually on my way out of the door, and I was already in my PTs. And so one of the civilians that I work with, he called me, said, Graveyyy, we're having this issue. We need your assistance to help one of our soldiers from our, I think it was a sister unit in Fort Fayetteville. And so I was like, okay, cool. I can do it. But, I got to leave at like 12. And so I think my appointment was like 1 or something like that. So I was like, I got to leave at 12 because I still got to go get lunch. And I got a phone call. And so I'm on the phone and I'm just like doing this lady is explaining to me, I'm on the phone call and this person is just explaining to me like, what's going on. I'm looking through their DTS paperwork, and I'm just like, well, okay, well, I see all the receipts that everything's looking good, this, that, and the third. So I ended up finishing helping her out, right? And this is why I said if unbothered was a person. Because what? Like, once we was about to get off the call, she's like, and what was your name again? And I told her my first and last name, and she's like, Colby, because that's my first name. And I'm like, yeah, it's my first name. What's up? And she's like, do you know anybody by, she called one of my homegirls' names. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I do. I know her. And she was like, oh yeah, well, I'm such and such, this person's baby mama. This person's child's mother. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I mean, like, because mind you, I hadn't talked to old boy in like 5 years, so I don't know what point was being proven. So I'm like, okay, well, and y'all don't know the half of this boy. So I'm like, well, whew, more power to you for having to deal with him for so long, because y'all got a child, baby. That's 18 years. I can say, oh, thank you. I was like, well, more power to you. I know he's a handful. And I just wish you the very, very best. And she's like, yeah, definitely. So I was like, but I gotta go. So all of your paperwork for your travel voucher is submitted and done. So you should be good. You shouldn't be getting any more errors, but I do have to go. And so she was like, okay, I understand. And we ended the call. And so when I was getting up to get ready to leave, I was giving the civilian that I work with, I was giving him back his phone because I was using his phone to actually speak. No, I was getting off the phone the VoIP phone, and when I hung up, and he was like, "Oh, what was that?" He was like, "Well, who was that?" And I was like, "Oh," I said, "She got a baby by my ex," and like the civilian, it was a guy, right? Because I guess like, I don't know if it's common for guys. Y'all let me, fellas in the comments, y'all let me know. But I don't know if it's common. But when I told him that, he was like, oh, like he didn't want to take the phone back. I was like, what? It's okay. And I think they thought I was like hurt by it. But I'm like, that was 5 years ago. Like this, not 5, 3, 25. Yeah, 3 years. That was 3 or 4 years ago. Like, I said that was a long time ago. That's old news, way old news. But they were like, "Oh, I mean, I ain't want no drama." I'm like, "It's no drama at all." I don't think I've ever spoken to this boy in like 4 years, and so, that was just funny. But that just kind of brought me back because it was like, yeah, that question brought me back. So it says, this question is pretty much what we've been talking about. This question basically says, what would change if more people became investigators instead of assumption makers? A lot more understanding. People would comprehend a lot more if they just ask questions and don't feel like they're stupid for asking this question. Didn't people tell y'all there's no such thing as dumb questions? Didn't they tell you that? Take heed. All right. Now the reflection point says, not every thought deserves trust. Not every fear deserves authority. Not every alarm requires action. Sometimes peace begins when we pause long enough to verify the alert. So pause long enough to make sure it is what you think it is. And if it is what you think it is, talk it out. Yeah. Talk about it. Don't be about it. Got to kind of reverse that because, you ain't gotta, we grown. All this, if they want to act like animals, they got cages for one. Call the law. Thank you. Okay. All right. So this conversation has been really, really good and I've enjoyed it. So we're coming on down to our take control segment. So of course, control A is what stood out most from today's conversation. And what really stood out most from today's conversation is that I think I could sharpen my tools about being a little bit more direct. But like I said, I do have to process what I'm feeling, but I do think I can benefit from being a little bit more direct as far as like what I need, when I need it. And what I mean by that is if I come to like a recollection, say that. People might not understand it, but I can say that because it's all in the sense or in the faith of teaching people how to deal with you. So I'm going to continue to train people how to deal with me. This is what stood out to me. My reflection. I'm going to continue to teach people how to deal with me, even in the new version of me, because we change often. So how you deal with me will change, obviously, often. So I think I'm going to continue to teach people how to deal with me effectively, and just not play about me. Continue to be the unbothered person that I am and continue to take accountability for any wrongdoings or shortcomings that I might have that might have affected somebody else. So it's my reflection. So control C. What's one quote or insight you're taking with you today? And the quote that I'm taking with me, I think is the last one. It said, not every thought deserves trust. Not every fear deserves authority. Not every alarm requires action. Not every alarm requires action. Sometimes peace begins when we pause long enough to verify the alert. And I just think that's very beautiful, because it just reminds me to kind of continue on the path that I am and actually just take in what I'm seeing, what I'm comprehending, hear what's being said, what's being seen, what I'm interacting with right now, only taking in what I'm interacting with right now and responding to that and removing any emotions attached to that. Any emotions that I have or any shortcomings or like pains that I have, refraining from projecting those emotions into what I'm dealing with right now, so that I can make a conscious decision, something that's going to benefit me instead of hold me back. Control V. What's one situation in your life where you need to gather more evidence before drawing a conclusion? I don't know. Control V is generally where, how are you going to apply this to your life? And I guess I would have to glean from the control C, which is just not injecting anything other than my understanding of what's going on at the time of my response into the equation. And then also just not playing about me. And that's what I get from that. And I feel like stay the course. Yeah. That's what I would be applying to my life. Just stay the course of being more logical versus emotional. Definitely stay the course. So, security analysts don't panic every time an alert appears. They investigate. They gather evidence. They verify the threat before taking action. Because chasing every false positive wastes time, energy, and resources. Life works the same way. A delayed response becomes rejection. A challenge becomes failure. A conversation becomes conflict. Before long, we're exhausting ourselves, fighting battles that only exist in our minds. That doesn't mean that your feelings aren't real. It simply means they may not be telling you the whole story. So before reacting to every alarm, pause, investigate, gather evidence, ask better questions, because sometimes the thing stealing your peace isn't a threat. It's a false positive. So thank you all for watching. This has been another amazing topic, another amazing conversation. Like I said, I'm getting better at interacting with y'all a little bit more on this camera. But like I said, that is all for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this episode with your friends if it's blessed you. You guys can follow the podcast at Insider Threat TV on all platforms. You guys can follow me at I'm Graveyyy. That is with 3 Y's on Instagram. And on that note, I say protect your peace, audit your code, and as always, logging off. For now, your web tip of the day is coming up next. I love you guys.